Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show 2026. Wow, time has definitely flew. I'd like to first start out by saying congratulations to our own Indiana Hoosiers football team for truly a remarkable and memorable game last night. Congratulations. Proud to be a Hoosier, undefeated. That's definitely that beast mindset going in 2026. You couldn't ask for pretty much anything more except for continuous blessings. But let's go deeper with today's show, 2026. Let's start the beast mindset off with something even more empowering. Let's call it life beyond the binge. Not only a story of resilience, but a story of empowerment, definitely that beast mindset, but a change in going into 2026. But this young lady is coming on the show. I looked over her notes, and one thing that stood out wasn't the title, Life Beyond the Binge. What was impactful to me was, let me make sure I get this right. How's it working for you? That just literally caught my eye, because going into 2026, we need to ask ourselves this question. Everything that you've done up to 2026, how's that working for you? How did that work for you? And then more importantly, what are you going to do differently going into 2026? That's going to not only change your narrative, but more importantly, going into 2026 and beyond, how is it going to make a difference in somebody else's life? So let's get right to today's show. Life Beyond the Binge is, like I said, a story of resilience. It's soon to come out as hopefully this spring. She's going to tell us more about that. But without further ado, let's welcome to the show, Miss Colleen Clifford. What's up, baby girl?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. This is my first podcast this year. I'm so excited that I'm with you sharing this.
Well, thank you. Colleen, before we get started, we know you was born and raised in Seattle, Washington, but tell the viewers a little bit about who you are before we get into Life Beyond the Binge.
Yeah, so I'm a college dropout, just starting at my 20s, because that's where the binge drinking really started for me. I was an athlete, good kid, raised in church, did what I was supposed to, but hit college, started drinking, ended up dropping out, didn't put two and two together that it was because of the booze. And then I fell into commercial fishing. And I've worked in Alaska for 36 years on a boat. Probably, I figure maybe around 22 years inside a boat. I've spent 22 years of my life on the sea. That's a long time. But I was escaping, and I didn't realize it at the time. But there's a lot of my story when I really started to look at why was I drinking and why was I binge drinking. I had to unearth a lot of my life and the things that happened to me that impacted me, that made me lose my self-love, that made me want to try to be someone else. And I thought alcohol did that for me, especially socially. And then to top it off, my late husband died by suicide in 2011. And I just like to take a pause to acknowledge that. And within that, my world turned upside down. But he was drunk, completely drunk when he died. And what I know now with my drinking and what happens when you binge drink, I just have realized how maybe he didn't know what he was doing, and it just made me realize that I made a promise to him in my healing. I went through a lot of emotions, as you can imagine. I was mad, then I got depressed, and then I gained compassion. And I thought, okay, if he was in such a bad place that he chose death over life, how can I share? Like, I just said a prayer to him, like, Scott, I hope you don't mind, but I want to keep your memory alive, and I want to try to share the message of how serious binge drinking is, and especially around mental health. So the suicide aspect, the mental health aspect, is part of my story and part of my journey.
Let me go back a little bit. What was it like for you in your household? Because you mentioned some key factors here. You mentioned that escape. You mentioned change who you were. What was it like for you growing up prior to going to college? Because a lot of this stuff must have entered your life during your childhood before you even got to college. I think college was the transformation from pain to covering up pain or not recognizing pain, and then get into because we all went to, a lot of us that have gone to college, we know that's a whole different genre. You're going to be exposed to stuff that you probably wouldn't have been able to while you was in high school and so forth. But what was it like before you got to that level in your household and people that you were in contact with, friends, family, and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I come from a fairly large family. So there's 5 kids. My parents stayed together. I feel very blessed, honestly. They did the best they could. We weren't financially wealthy. We all had to start working as soon as we could to get those extra pair of shoes we wanted. I think I was athletic. I was in a soccer program that kept me very busy and successful. And so I think really, Andre, what happened I did a lot of counseling on, being the 4th kid and not getting my needs met. But all in all, I have a very solid, loving family. I mean, all families are slightly dysfunctional, but I had a major incident when I started drinking that affected me. And that's what I write about in the book. And that's where my self-loathing began. I internalized the incident as my fault. And I never shared it for years. And I started this self-destructive cycle.
When we say an incident that happened, I want people to read the book, but I'm going to just, without giving out, you can just say, was the incident, did it have to do with abuse or did it have to do with sexual stuff?
It was sexually related. Yeah.
Somebody you knew?
Yes. Yes.
So internal.
Yeah. And so I talk about it in the book. It's really a very vulnerable thing. And I'm still not sure I want to share it because it's really vulnerable.
When you say really vulnerable, like, what do you mean without giving out all of the nuggets to the book? What do you mean when you say that? Like vulnerable? Was it somebody that you didn't expect this to happen to? Was it somebody that you knew really close to you?
Okay, I'm going to share it with you. This will be the first time I share it publicly, and I relate it to kind of like Michael Jordan within my book, because he's such a brave soul that came forward when he got HIV, right? During a time when, was it Michael Jordan? Oh my God, am I going to shoot? I'm having a senior moment. Oh, Lord, you have mercy. But, I contracted a sexually transmitted disease that is not curable.
What?
And yeah, I was infected with herpes. And the doctor, I didn't know what it was because I was inexperienced. And I hadn't used protection. And I went to a doctor finally after not being able to ignore it any longer, and I was told I had herpes and it was incurable, and And it was such a shaming moment for me that I internalized it as I'm never going to get married. I'll never have children. I'll never tell anyone. No one's going to want me or love me because I'm dirty.
Right.
And so I just locked that away in my heart, threw away the key, and continued and started to self-sabotage.
Let me take a moment here and say thank you so much for sharing that, because I know that had to be difficult.
It is.
The fact that you are sharing it, I think there's a reason for that to have come out. And let me go here with this for a minute. This platform is designed to not only empower, but to educate. So there might be somebody else, another female, who might have been, or a guy that might have been victimized by getting involved in sexual experimentation and went through the same thing you did. So let me go here with this. You were young when this happened. It was somebody that you knew. Were they older?
Mm-hmm.
How much older? 5 years, 10 years?
10 years.
10 years. So they already had it.
Yes.
And
but they may not have known it.
Yeah. They may not have known. When you found out that you contracted this, who were you with? Were you with your mom, your dad?
I was still living at home because I had dropped out of college, and I moved back home.
19 or 20 years old at this time.
Yes, it was. I was 20.
Oh, so you didn't have to even have nobody with you when you was giving this information. You was an adult now.
Yeah, I was an adult, but I didn't feel I could tell anyone. You know, I was raised a Catholic, and you don't have sex till you get married. And I started drinking and, playing promiscuous. This was probably like my third partner ever. And bam, there you go. I didn't know didn't know that these things could happen. I didn't even know it was out there. This was before the internet, right? And then when I got it, I didn't have anywhere to Google. The doctor handed me this 1-800 number and said, call this number. And I threw it in the garbage on the way out and said, I'm not talking to anybody about this. And
so how do you, this is crazy. So you're right. At that time, people need to realize internet wasn't there. Information was limited and that was almost like a death sentence, as far as relationship, because now you're still young. Let's just call it what it is. You're still, just because you're 20 and 19 don't mean that you have what is called the maturity level to understand what's just been given to you. So with that said, you mentioned other relationships. So you continue having relationships outside of that even though you was diagnosed with this?
Yes.
Did you share the information with your partners? How did they, or did you keep it silent?
I kept it silent for about 10 years. But here's the deal. When I knew it was going to start to flare, I would break up, or I would say it's over.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so afraid I was so afraid of the reaction I would get if I shared that I would turn and leave the relationship rather than share it.
How did you educate yourself? Wait, let me go back for a minute. The information was limited. You threw away the number. When did reality start to really set in to say, you know what? There's no cure for this. I might endanger other people. Did you even think about, was this life threatening? Could you die from this? When did you say, let me really understand what I have here before I do damage not only to myself? Because I don't want people to think you was heartless,
right?
By still having relationships. But the thing is, when did you really take a hold and really start to evaluate safety protocol for not only yourself, but for moving forward with a relationship? Because it's not a death sentence. It's not going to kill you, but you're going to have it for the rest of your life, is what I'm saying.
Right. Well, for me, it felt like a death sentence.
Right.
Especially being a female, right? I mean, there is a little difference between men and women in sexual, there's just still that, men can get away with more than women can. But for me, I went on the boat and I escaped, because commercial fishing, back then there was no internet. We were floating up near Russia fishing. I spent most of my year on a boat working. And when I was home, it was partying, and I think I was in denial about it. But what I did is I internalized it and started a self-destructive route. This is the times when I could have died about 6 times drinking. I fell off a balcony. I jumped in a river. I think I was trying to die by drinking. And then what happened, my sister, when I was about 32, she sat me down one time. We were watching her kids play, because I was never going to get married and have kids. And I lived up to that for a number of years. Never did have kids, but I did end up getting married. She says to me one day, we were at the park watching her kids play, and she says, "Colleen, what happened to you? Why don't you want kids? What happened to you?" And I said, "Nothing. I don't want to talk about it." And she said, "Come on, something's going on. Just tell me." No. I don't want to talk about it. She pulled it out of me. That was the first time I ever spoke the words. And from that point on, I started healing. I went to therapy. Mm-hmm. And then it was scary, but the next time I had a partner, I told them. And I apologized to all, I didn't handle it well before then, right? The honorable thing to do is to speak about it. But I was so afraid of rejection, and I think I denied I even had it until it flared up. That's the thing. It's denial can be such a strong emotion.
Well, I don't want people to get this twisted.
Right.
Because during that time, I grew up in that age. Everybody who contracted it, as a matter of fact, it was pretty widespread. A lot of people, because a lot of people wasn't telling other people. Mm-hmm. I remember that. They wasn't telling people. But it made the sexual revolution more transparent, where you had to start taking accountability for yourself. Because I believe shortly after that, then we wind up with, I believe, the AIDS fluctuation began to happen. And I appreciate the fact that you're being so transparent with it, because I tell people this is a judge-free zone too. You don't know what you would have done at that time when they didn't have the World Wide Web where you can research. Because just imagine, put yourself in her shoes. You going into this place, you've been victimized by your partner who, like you said, may or may not know he had this particular illness. But even doctors didn't have enough information. They give you a piece of paper. Did you wind up being on medication? I don't even remember if there was any medication that they can give you. How did you suppress it for it not flaring up? Because one of the things, I guess, one of the triggers is stress, correct?
Yes. No, it's seriously, Andre, I felt so shamed by this doctor, and I'm not blaming him, but maybe it's how I internalized the whole situation. But it was a moment I'll never forget of saying, that's it. My life's over. I'm never getting married. And I totally buried it, and I didn't get any help. I never told any of my doctors on my annuals. I was just not going to share it.
What was the thing that you remember your sister said to you that made you open up? What was the key word?
Well, my sister's persistent, that's for sure. And, my sister knows me better than anyone. We grew up, shared the same room. But she just said, what happened to you?
Right.
She knew something happened. It's a sister thing, I guess. I don't know. So she just drug it out of me, honestly. I wasn't going to say anything, but she made me.
I just had a download. I'm going to go back real quick.
Yeah.
There was you said a 5-year difference between you and the partner, the individual. How do you know which one? Were you only with one partner at that time, or multiple people? how did you confront the people that you was involved with who may or may not had known that they had it, which made you contract it?
Yeah, this is, probably going to sound terrible. I can't believe I'm even talking about this once again, but
Hey, I'm persistent. You know that.
I don't know. I guess I'm ready. This is the whole point of my book and writing it and like delving into why was I binge drinking? It's because I didn't love myself. I hated myself. I wanted to die. And I didn't feel like I was lovable because I had this thing. And yeah, I was promiscuous. And to answer your question, so I really wasn't quite sure. I never went back and asked these people. I was immature. Like you said, you don't really start, your brain's not done developing until you're 25. And I was off on an ocean fishing, not developmentally growing. I was working on a boat. And so it wasn't until my 30s when my sister cracked my shell and I started going to therapy that the therapist helped me realize it wasn't my fault. I don't have to internalize it. I am lovable, and I can't go back and apologize. But moving forward, I can do it differently, and I have. And I find that the partner I have now was so loving about it. I thought, oh my God, I had the wrong story in my head for years.
Right.
And I convicted myself through my own thoughts and my own story that I wasn't lovable without giving anyone a chance to prove me wrong.
It's so funny. We talked about that last year, and we was talking about, I had a discussion with somebody about maturity in relationships. And I said, you suffer from what I might call emotional intelligence. And the lack of emotional intelligence. So when you start to understand all these handicaps, these potholes that you went through, and like you just said, address them, now you become mature. And we all go through that. I tell everybody, none of us is really mature. We might think we are because we judge maturity by age and experiences, but if you don't address those potholes that you put to the side, the end result usually happens like you just said. Now you're on not a cruise ship, but you're on a fishing boat. That's crazy. I'm probably blown away about this. A female on were you the only female on this boat?
There's probably a quarter. At that time, there was maybe 80% men, 20% women. Now it's probably 65% men, 45 women.
You didn't have any other alternatives?
Pardon?
You didn't have any other alternative? You quit in college and all of a sudden you go, let's go get on a boat and go fishing?
Well, my soccer buddy was doing it, and she came home with the cute little truck, and I said, wow, where'd you get the money for that? And she said, I commercially fish. You want to come? Just apply over here. And I thought, well, that sounds like an adventure. Nobody knew what it was back then either, right? You're talking 1989.
Yeah, I didn't know. I'm thinking, you on a what now? So what were you guys fishing? You going all the way to Russia, so you're doing salmon, you're doing shrimp, lobster?
Yeah, we're on we go to the Russia border, just close to it. We can't fish in Russian waters, but there's actually a line on the ocean, that we don't cross. But we fish for a fish called pollock. And I
love pollock. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and cod is a byproduct, meaning cod swim with the pollock. And sometimes we catch cod. They're bottom fish. So, it's an industry. It's been around, for 30 something years since I started. I think it began, I don't know exactly, maybe 1985 when Japan was in Alaska before Americans were, and Americans figured out there was a lot of money to be made and they kicked the Japanese out. And now it's
always about money, ain't it?
It is.
Money and power.
Yeah, I cook on the boat, Andre. I'm now the one in charge of the food and housekeeping. We have a housekeeping. It's a ship, so we have a big vessel and a lot of people to feed, and
You're not doing that still, are you?
I am. I'm only have a few more years before I retire, but I don't work as much
You
as
can
I did.
retire from this? You guys have a union?
No, well, I have my 401k. I mean,
Oh, okay.
I finally got smart in my 40s and thought I better start saving some money.
That's called maturity now.
It is.
So let's go back a little bit, you mentioned the suicide of your husband,
Mm-hmm.
the drinking. How were you guys both in the same mindset during this tragic incident? Were you guys both on the same pathway, as far as recovering in addiction?
Well, for one, I didn't realize how much he had been drinking because I was gone on the boat fishing, and he didn't fish. He had a private horse tour company, and so he had lost both his parents, died 4 months apart, and it sent him into a depression. Mm-hmm. And other things were going on. It was like there's like a recipe for people who die by suicide, and he had everything that was on that list. Looking back, it's easy to see when it happens, you wonder how you missed it, right? Mm-hmm. But
hold that thought for a minute. I didn't mean to cut you off. You just brought up something I think the viewers need to hear. I know this is going to be hard for you. Mm-hmm. What? I didn't even know this. What were the recipes? Because I think people need to. The reason I'm saying this is because you lived it and you're trying to make sure that you help other people. I didn't know the recipe. Like, I wouldn't know somebody's suicidal. Let's get real. I don't know the signs that what I should be looking at. You just said something that was very profound. You said, had I seen it, he had all the signs. What were those signs that you didn't recognize at the time?
Mm-hmm. Some of them are, he was depressed, which he hid it pretty well. So when people change their patterns of operation, like most of us have a way we operate and move through the world, when that starts to change, like maybe someone starts to isolate themselves, or maybe it might be the other way where they get snappy, they start being snappy, they might not be eating, they start drinking more than usual. He had been taking medication for depression, and he stopped the medication without weaning off slowly. He stopped resisting help. He was going to some therapy, and then he said, this isn't helping me, I'm just going to quit. What else? He wasn't motivated, stopped doing things like he was supposed to be doing something. And then ultimately I had asked for a divorce because we were having problems, and he wasn't he wasn't doing his bargain of our deal through counseling. And so it was like a push to get him to move. That's what I thought when I asked for the divorce. It was like, hey,
I know eyesight is 20/20, and this is a hypothetical question. But do you think that might have been the trigger that if he can't depend on you to understand? Let me rephrase this. He's thinking because you're his wife that you should understand maybe what he's going through, but you wasn't, because like you said, you didn't know the signs. You just took it for whatever it was. But I'm thinking, do you have survivor remorse because you might think that because you asked for the divorce that maybe that might have been the final straw that sent him over the edge?
Absolutely. That's what I felt. But I was still seeing my counselor, and I called her the minute I found out he died. I was on the boat, and she helped me get my mind straight. And it's, we are not responsible for anyone else's feelings, or, if he was emotionally healthy, he wouldn't have needed me so much. Mm-hmm. His reliance on me was unhealthy. And right. I was feeling it. That's probably part of the reason why I needed some separation. It's like, you need to get yourself healthy. Mm-hmm. And So I went through a period where I felt guilty for sure. I mean, his friends did, and all of us like, oh, I could have called him, but at the end of the day, it was his own actions, but part of it was he was drunk, and drinking and depression don't mix. And had he been able to get through that night without being drunk, he might have woke up in the morning and we could have had another conversation. Mm-hmm. Like, just because you ask for a divorce doesn't mean, it's like cracking the shell of, hey, this is serious. We got to start talking. Like, we need to figure this out. And so I regret a lot that I didn't have the opportunity to even have another discussion with him to see what was going on and how he felt. And it's really tragic that was what he chose to do. He was in so much pain that was his only choice of getting rid of his pain, was to die by suicide. And I take it as a compassion thing now. A lot of people say, oh, what a cop-out. And I say, hey, have some compassion. Like, who wants to kill themselves, really? It's like the only option people that do die by suicide feel they have.
Yeah. I don't like somebody saying that, what a cop-out. That's so not putting yourself in somebody's shoes.
Exactly.
A lot of times we don't know that we're sick. We don't know we have issues. We, like you said, we depend on other people to see those signs, those symbols. And a lot of us are so, I hate to say this, we're so self-absorbed on our own world that we can't see beyond our own selfishness to look at our next door neighbor or to look at a family member and say, like you just said, you're not yourself today. I tell people, don't give me my flowers when I'm dead. Pick up the phone and call me. Hey, how you doing? You're not yourself today. All it takes, people, is to look at your surroundings, be observant of the people that you're in contact with, because you're usually that first line of connection if they're having a bad day.
Andre, can I also share with your listeners, there's a 988 hotline number that we can call any time of the day, 365 days a year, where there's a trained counselor to help. It's a crisis hotline. Doesn't necessarily have to be suicide related, but if you're having any kind of mental crisis, or if you have a thought of, wow, I just want to fall in a hole and not come out, call, and they will be there to help listen and help you through that moment.
Do you have that number?
It's 988. It's just text, just call 988. It's like 911, but it's 988. It's a national suicide crisis hotline number for the United States. I believe there's another one for Canada, and I'm not sure what it is, so I don't want to say it, but you could Google the hotline for Canada, but there's 988.
I appreciate that. And the viewers, make sure you take that number just in case. Let me go back with you for a minute. While you was on the boat and you get this information, let's talk about your mental health. Let's talk about your addiction. Were you still under the influence? Were you still dealing with your own issues, or had you already started a program prior to getting the news about your husband?
Yes, I had quit drinking. So I wasn't drinking when he died. I was probably almost a year and a half sober. And I remained a non-drinker for about another year and a half after he died. And then I fell into a depression. It was like a latent thing after all the noise of, working through everything you have to do after your spouse dies, of organizing your household and things like that. I had nothing to distract me anymore except my job. And there's a lot of time alone in my job. And I fell into my own depression. And so I had a taste of what depression feels like. I'd never felt it before. And that's when my compassion began for Scott, because I was really angry with him for a while, and I had to work through that.
What were
And
you angry about? Because he didn't have the capabilities to share with you what he was going through in depth?
I was angry. I felt like he copped out. We had a lot of financial issues going on. I felt like he just dropped the ball on me, and I was angry. And I was angry financially. I was like, the house we were in at the time was his responsibility to pay the mortgage. And now it's mine. We had 3 houses at the time. We had our own financial portfolios. So, it was a lot of cleaning up, so to speak. I mean, I don't know, tidying up, it might be a better word. And we had horses. He had a horse. We had a lot of things going on. And for me as a fisherwoman, I had to find a place to house everything that we had because I wasn't home, right? So I had to find a place for the horses, a place for our dogs, our cats. And I lost a lot of things I loved in that moment that he chose to die because I couldn't keep all of our animals. And I lost him. So it was really a spiraling moment, and it really made me realize our lives can change in an instant. And his death was related to alcohol, binge drinking. And that, what am I focusing on? I was spending so much time trying to save money for retirement that it's like my whole vision of life changed because none of that's going with us. And it's like, okay, what is life?
Did you say that again? Because I tell people that all the time. If you look at the average person's portfolio, this is so tripped out. The first thing they say is, I'm trying to save for retirement. Well, what if you die tomorrow? I think we should have learned from history. They found tons of gold with King Tut. King Tut, they ain't got none of that gold with him now. I think out of that tragedy situation, you had another level of maturity happen to you because you realize life is more than trying to save for retirement because the person you love the most, he died.
Mm-hmm.
Those things had to be reorganized. The things that was priority now. Let me ask another question. I'm going to go back before you say this. You said something that you was clean from drinking for a year prior. He had to witness your actions to sobriety. Did you guys ever talk about that?
We did. It was my thing. And this is how in my book, I don't judge other people's drinking experience.
Right.
So I just asked him at the time when I quit that time that if he could I needed the alcohol out of the house, and he respected that. So there was no alcohol around, and I know at times he was drinking, but I didn't judge that. But I didn't realize how much he was because he was drinking in the garage or whatever, and I never paid attention.
With that said, when the epiphany happened and you went through survival remorse, who helped you to get back to reality?
Part of it was my job. I had to show up for work. When I was depressed, I couldn't call in sick. On the fishing boat, you show up. You have to be deathly ill to not. I've never missed a day of work in 36 years on the boat. And so I had to show up if I wanted my job, and I needed my job. That helped me because just moving, you might be in a numbed state, but you're getting through your day. And over time, it gets easier to get out of bed. I did things like I started reading about spirituality, and I went on retreats. and I just did everything. Some things would fall into my space of like, oh, this looks interesting. I'm going to try that. And just through the years of talking and crying and being vulnerable, sharing with others, and learning that I wasn't the only one to have this experience, it helped me heal.
When you say you wasn't the only one to have this experience, what was the one part that you remember that somebody else had this experience and shared it with you? Because you're getting a lot of notoriety on social media, so I'm pretty sure a lot of people are coming at you sharing the same thing. What's the one person, you don't have to mention their name, or the one incident that you remember that somebody shared with you that was similar, that kind of shared the same journey as you?
Whenever I speak about suicide and my experience, it's interesting who will share something about their life or even themselves that they tried to die by suicide or they thought about it. And so what I'm finding is that there's a number of people we're not even aware of who have maybe had suicidal thoughts, or they know someone who died by suicide. So I think in my experiences recently, I was getting to know someone at a dinner, and there was only a few people at the table, and I'm very open. I like to get straight to like a conversation that has meaning sometimes. And so they said, what's your story? So I tell my story in a little bit. I don't like to be victim or whatever, and then someone will share, wow, I tried to die by suicide. And then they open up with their story, and I just listen. Mm-hmm. And I say, thank you for sharing that. Sometimes we just need to be heard. We don't need like any input of
shoulda,
well, this is what you should have done, or
yeah. And I tell people that too. Sometimes the best friend is a friend that will just sit there and listen and not say coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, let me also say thank you once again for being so transparent going into 2026. I think you definitely show what that beast mindset is about by letting your guard down and using your story to impact somebody else's life and say, you know what, you can do it. But then let's go back to this particular phrase. You know, I like this phrase, right?
Yeah. I do too, honestly.
So let me ask you, Colleen, how's it working for you with all you've been through? How is it working for you going into 2026?
Wow, this is like the third part of my life, right? I'm in my 60s, and I feel like I'm reinventing me as a solid, healthy woman. And it's so exciting to age. And my goals this year is to share, to get on stage, to get on podcasts. Thank you very much for saying yes to me, Andre. And to not be afraid of the vulnerability, because it's a story, right? Like, yeah. Who in their right mind would just share what I did? And you're the first person I've shared it with. And I'm afraid, like I am still not comfortable with what I've just shared. And so I want to get comfortable with being, this is me. And if someone else if I can impact someone else with hope or whatever, it's worth it.
I like that. I like that a lot. How can the viewers reach out to you? Tell me about the book. Out of all you've gone through, let's promote this book real quick.
Oh, thanks.
With the book coming out, how long did it take to do the book? And my third question, what's the most impactful part of that book that can sum up everything and as far as you're concerned?
Okay, so the first question, I've always wanted to write a book, I think. And as you can see, I love books. I haven't read all those behind me, but someday I like to collect
that's
books.
A lot of books. Well, how many is that? 100 books?
I have not read all of them. I'm just, but there's a lot of great writers out there. And so this is a dream come true. It's taken me a about a year and a half. I'll have a lot of time on the boat to myself when I'm off shift. So it's quiet time. So it's been, I think that's helpful. If I were in normal living, it might have taken me longer because life's different on land. But, and then, so as far as my book, it was a healing process for me. And the idea behind it is to share my late husband's story too, to keep his memory alive, turning a tragedy into a impactful, hopeful mission for others. And probably the most vulnerable piece, I am sharing the part about my herpes. I'm just going to say it. And that's really scary, but I'm doing it. And the reason I'm sharing that is because that was why I was drinking. The whole story is about binge drinking, because I did not love myself. I wanted to die in my head. I didn't want to die by suicide, but I was like unconsciously trying to be gone by jumping in rivers, by doing crazy things, drinking too much and falling off a balcony. I mean, there's like 6 times I should be dead. And so the whole book is related with those kinds of stories, but also always asking the reader, do you drink? Like, look at your own drinking. Why are you drinking? What's it doing for you? And how is it working for you? It's not judgmental at all. I'm not telling anyone they need to quit drinking. If I could drink, I would.
Right.
I like to drink. I like beer. I like wine. But I came to a place in my life where it just wasn't, it's not an option for me if I want to become the best version of me. And I do. So the alcohol's gone for me.
Right.
And maybe your listeners might come to a place where they're like, yeah, how is it working for me? And that's all I'm asking. I'm not saying alcohol's the devil. I'm just saying.
How's that working for you?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, look, that stood out when on the questionnaire. I'm like, wow, that's pretty powerful. That's a question everybody should ask themselves. How's it working for you? I got one more question to ask. In memories to your husband, tell me about him. What was he like? What was his purpose? We know he lost, parents. We know he was dealing with that. But outside of that, you knew him better than anybody. Tell me some of the beautiful things you remember about him and what made him special, despite, we all have our own demons that we have to wrestle with. But there is a more beautiful side of him. Tell me what he was like and what you remember about him and what was his purpose, if he was still here today.
Thank you for asking this question. You're the first person to do this. I met him. He's a guy that would help anyone, whether he knew you or not. I met him through a horse accident. He was my neighbor, and it's a long story, but he's the one that came charging up on his horse to help me out. And I saw him and I fell in love with him in that moment. People he came in contact with loved him. He had a private horse tour business. He'd take you and your partner or whoever on a ride for 3 hours. If he liked you, you were having fun, he'd take you out all day without charging you. I mean, people loved him so much. One client gave us a horse of hers. That was a beautiful horse as a wedding gift because he touched her so much. It wasn't for me. She didn't even know me. And he just was always wanted to learn. He was a very curious man. And I think, here's something for everyone to think about too, is that depression, he wasn't a depressive person before. It was the circumstances. His one mother died. His father died. He's very close to his parents. They lived near us. I was very close to his parents. I adored them. And I saw him unravel after that. Depression hit. And we moved to another place, another state, actually, to try to help. If we thought, we'll move we'll move to another location. Maybe it's the location. He hates Arizona now, where we were. Let's go to Utah, where his daughter is. And so we moved location. That didn't help. I'm off fishing on the boat, so I can't really see what's going on at home because we didn't have the ability to talk all the time. Once a week, I couldn't even see him. Now we have WhatsApp, so I can see my life partner now every day on a video call, and we stay connected that way. And it's beautiful. Had we had that, things might have been different for us back then in those years. But he just, depression can happen to any of us with the right situation, the right circumstance of things happen. And that's what I learned through this, is that it was no fault of his own. He just didn't have the tools to get the help he needed. And he, like a lot of us, didn't ask for help. I know I didn't ask for help when I needed it with my depression. I just said, I'm going to get through this. And why don't we ask for help? It's there. It would have been so much simpler had I. And had he asked for help, he might still be alive today. And so there's a lot of lessons through all of it. And I talk about asking for help in my book too. Because for some reason we are taught that asking for help is a sign of weakness. And it's really courageous to ask for help.
I have a life partner. How transparent was that for you to unleash all of this on him? And how's that going for you right now?
He's an incredible man as well. His wife passed by a brain tumor. So he's a widower. I'm a widow. And that's a connection that we have. He understands losing a partner. Mm-hmm. Now he's like the total opposite of me. One of the many things I love about him is he's a very loyal. He married her young. They would still be married today. He's a loyal guy. And when we met, I said to him, my track record's not that great. Like, I was very upfront from the very beginning, because that's how I am now, right? Transparent. And I said, I will try in this relationship, but I'm showing you this is my past. Are you okay with this? This is me. Are you willing to go for it? And we're going on eight years now.
Wow.
I know. So, communicating is really helpful.
Hey, I'm not mad at you. I tell people all the time, man, the biggest part of a relationship is communication. I don't care what nobody says. You have to be able to have emotional intelligence to communicate. And a lot of people shy away from that because we're not taught how to communicate through our life's journey. That's the biggest thing. And then the trials and tribulations hinder that even more. And it causes so much dysfunction. My last question, I know I said last question, but I just got to ask this question. Okay. I gotta leave this question. You're on a boat. Now, I saw this movie. Remember those Fisher guys and that big old tsunami came and blah, blah, blah. You don't freak out there for that long with waves and all that. Like, how do you do that?
Well, it's been years. So in the earlier years, yes, I did freak out. Over the years, the ship I'm on now is very large. Technology now is very safe. We know the weather patterns like for the week. Years ago, we didn't have all that. It was kind of a crapshoot, right? A storm would hit and we were in it. So, I figure I haven't died yet. And, I could have died on land drinking.
Yeah.
Partying. So I figure I'm in God's hands as to when my time to come will be. I hope it's not in the Bering Sea, but
who knows?
We just hang on and we just continue to do our jobs in those rough days. And those are the moments where you think, why am I here? Am I crazy? Yes, I am. But it ends, and then we forget about it.
My hats off to you, man. I mean, like, you're the first female I know that's been on, that literally works on a boat like that and catch fish. Congratulations for that. How can the viewers reach out to you, find you on social media?
I'm at purepotential.health on Instagram, and I'm actually posting a lot more about the boat life because people seem to be interested in that. So if you check it out, you'll see my daily life more. So I have my new website, lifebeyondthebinge.com. I'm just starting to blog on there, and that's where my book, you can find out information about my book and speaking opportunities. I really want to talk to the younger folks at schools and whoever that wants to hear my message, not only about the dangers of drinking, but also inspirational life messages about getting through tragedy and coming out with the silver lining, because there always is a silver lining in any tragedy if we can just dig through the dirt to find it.
Colleen, thank you so much for taking time to come on and welcome us into 2026 with such a beautiful story of that beast mindset and resilience and basically being so transparent. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you reach out, follow, support. All it takes is one click of a button to make a difference in somebody else's life as well as your own. This has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of the Andre